somehow the universe knew we human beings were coming.
Wow. The universe must be really freaking patient. So, today I'm going to be going over a short clip about a guy named Hugh Ross. He's an astrophysicist and a Christian apologist. This guy's pretty damn smart, so I'll venture he'll be a lot harder to respond to than some of the people I've tackled before. Before we get into this video though, I'd like to give thanks to Shannon Q for shouting me out on Twitter. I really didn't expect that, and it was an incredibly pleasant surprise to wake up to. Anyways, with that out of the way, let's move on to the video.
This question came in, just what is a simple way to tell an unbeliever that's a friend, a family member, that God exists through astronomy? Just one simple thing. Where would you start them with?
Well, what I would start is by demonstrating that we now have evidence that the universe has a beginning. And this is something that is not disputed amongst astronomers, whether they be atheists or agnostics or deists, that the universe really does have a beginning of matter, energy, space, and time.
Alright, I'm going to assume that this is leading into some kind of a first cause argument, but that would mean you're walking headfirst into the God of the Gaps fallacy. I would sincerely hope not. You're a PhD, man. You're incredibly knowledgeable. I would hope that this very basic fallacy should be beyond you.
And therefore there must be a causal agent beyond space and time.
I was right on the first part, don't make me right on the second.
That created it all.
And you blew it.
And that's what distinguishes the God of the Bible from the gods of other religions.
You've already gone too deep into the rabbit hole, Hugh. But since we're already in the rabbit hole with you right now, let's go ahead and ask, what sets the God of the Bible apart from the gods of other religions?
As I mentioned, the gods of the Eastern religions have God creating within space and time that eternally exists. God is subject to space and time in those religions. In Christianity, God is the master, the creator of space and time.
Okay, no, I'm gonna have to stop you there. There's an entirely different reason that the God of the Bible exists outside space and time. If you look at the earliest religions that we have documentation of, including earlier forms of the Abrahamic religions, you'll find that most gods were earthbound, because we humans didn't know that anything beyond our Earth existed. We thought the world was flat and the universe was geocentric. In older religions, any god would exist within our perception of reality. Greek gods, for instance, were said to exist on Mount Olympus. You know, until people went up Mount Olympus and realized there were no gods there. In the earlier stories in the Bible, we see God countless times on Earth in the form of a pillar of fire, or a physical man talking with Abraham, or hiding in the middle of a tabernacle. Hell, he was even wrestling with Jacob on a hill at one point. And he lost. Side note, you think maybe God should have taken up boxing instead? Probably could have won that way. In any case, even the Christian God is seen as quite earthbound at times in the older stories of the Bible, until we had to naturally move him out of human perception. You can only have God in a tabernacle for so long before enough people ask enough questions or, are killed for attempting to so much as touch the damn thing. Once God is moved from the tabernacle to the clouds, you can only keep him there so long as people don't discover that there's no such thing as a firmament, and God can't exist beyond a hypothetical barrier that doesn't exist. After that, you have to move God into the last frontier humans can't see or perceive as of right now, and that's a separate dimension altogether outside space and time. I can only wonder where Christians and Muslims will move God to after we gain the ability to peer outside those dimensions, though. If we ever gain the ability to do that at all. Point is, claiming that God is in a hypothetical space that we cannot conceivably reach has been done for thousands of years, and he only gets moved further and further out of reach as we extend the limits of our human influence on the universe.
Then I would follow that up with what has been termed the Entropic Principle. And there's been a lot of books written on that, almost all of them by non-Christians, pointing out that when we look at the universe, we see, in the words of Paul Davies, an agnostic astronomer, overwhelming evidence that has been designed to make possible the existence of human beings. Or as the physicist Freeman Dyson put it, when you look at the universe, you cannot avoid the conclusion that somehow the universe knew we human beings were coming. It was designed in advance for human beings.
I'm gonna have to stop you right there. Again. If the universe is supposed to be designed for human beings, I'll have to point out that God is a sloppy as hell architect. Now, Hugh, you're an old Earth creationist based on what research I've done of you, which means you, on some level, have to accept the age of the Earth, that being an estimated 4.4 billion years old. Humans, as we know them, only really started appearing on the Earth between 250 and 100,000 years ago. So, if we use the generous estimate of 250,000 years, humans have existed on the Earth for a fraction of a percent of the time that the Earth has been around. Now, with the current estimation that our universe is 14.5 billion years old, that puts the tiny amount of time we've been around into even more perspective. Our Milky Way galaxy has 100 billion planets in it, only one of which we've ever observed to harbor life. Just from our galaxy alone, the argument from fine-tuning falls apart so explosively, because if this universe is so fine-tuned, why is there only one planet with life in it that we can even observe? If you consider the fact that there are over 200 billion galaxies in our universe, the amount of livable space that we know of in our universe becomes so unbelievably small, you'd have a better chance of winning the lottery multiple times than finding a planet that can harbor life. If God were judged by human standards, he'd be out of a job and flipping burgers the minute he came up with the blueprints to make our universe if his intent was to make it for humans, let alone life in any form.
And there's actually a compendium on our website, reasons.org/fine-tuning.
Almost as reliable as answers in Genesis.
We'll pop up a 300-page compendium where we document all that evidence for design. But what I would share with a skeptic, that evidence for the supernatural design of the universe for the benefit of human beings over the past 25 years has gotten 1,000,000 times stronger every month. Which means if you're not convinced today, wait a month and see how much stronger the evidence becomes.
I'm going to assume that this was all a build-up to a joke, because I really don't want to assume that you tried to imply that the evidence for God becomes 100 million times more powerful with every passing month. I really don't want to believe that you legitimately said that.
If you were to ask me as an astronomer, where do we find the most spectacular evidence for supernatural design, I would say dark energy.
As far as I can tell, dark energy is still very hypothetical. But then again, so is your God, so I guess these two can be conflated pretty easily.
Dark energy makes up 3/4 of the stuff of the universe.
Oh, you mean dark matter! For those who are unaware, the difference between dark energy and dark matter, dark energy is the hypothetical artifacts that are left over from universal expansion, whereas dark matter is the actual stuff that makes up 80% of our universe. They are not the same thing, they are confused a lot, and this man is a PhD here also confusing them. I'm kind of concerned, actually.
But change the quantity by as little as 1 part in 10 to the 122nd power, there's no possibility for life anytime, anywhere in the universe.
That's a bold assertion, but you don't know that. Nobody knows that. All we understand is carbon-based life. Any other type of life is entirely hypothetical. So if you were to say that changing the way the universe is right now would make life completely and totally impossible, I'd beg to differ. The answer to that is, we don't know. You could have silicon-based life grow instead of carbon-based life. It's not outside of the realm of possibility, we just don't know about it yet. In fact, several hypotheses for silicon-based life have been put forward, but it still makes it a type of life we don't understand, as it's a type of life that we have yet to be able to observe. If it's a hypothetical type of life that we haven't even been able to observe, you can't say that it's not possible in a universe that's different than this one. It could entirely be the case that a universe different from this one could only harbor silicon-based life, as opposed to the carbon-based life we see today. But you don't know that, you're simply asserting that. But as I've stated before, that's no difference than the assertion of your hypothesis about God.
And the degree of fine-tuning design there exceeds the best example of human creativity and design by more than a factor of 100 trillion times.
No, the number that you just cited there has nothing to do with creativity. That's the number that's supposed to represent the chance that life occurs on Earth the way we see it today. That number, as far as I've ever been able to tell, is correct. The chances that we came here are incredibly small, but it's not the chance that we would be able to conceive a universe the way that we have it right now. That's incorrect.
Which means that the God that created the universe is at least that many times smarter than we human beings.
Again, I don't know how many times you stated incorrect information. It's honestly a little painful. I was giving you the benefit of the doubt in the beginning of the video, but now that we're sitting here almost at the end of it, I can only assume that a God who doesn't exist is still smarter than you, with the amount of misinformation you've managed to throw out to your audience here.
At least that many times more knowledgeable, and that many times more powerful, or better funded than we human beings.
I honestly had high hopes for this one. This guy is very well studied, and I guess this really just goes to show that even the smartest individuals can be stifled by religion. We had confusions on what dark energy and dark matter are, confusions on the chance of life occurring as we know it, and it somehow being called a chance of universe being creatively conceived, and a whole lot of other stuff that honestly shouldn't have been this painful to unpack. But it was, and I don't know why I just sacrificed several hours of my sleep on this particular argument. In any case, let me know what you guys thought of Ross's argument in the comment section below. Links to my Twitter and Patreon are going to be in the description below, and if you haven't subscribed yet, well, you're listening to my terribly grating voice this long already, you might as well click the subscribe and bell icons and be in it for the long haul, right? Well, before this video extends any longer than it already has to, I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll see you all next time.